India's campaign at the T20 World Cup has now come to an end. They won their last league encounter versus Namibia. We'll talk about that particular encounter. But more importantly, we're also going to dissect India's overall performance at this edition of the T20 World Cup. Joining us on the program live is going to be Sunil Gavaskar. I'll get to him a little later. But first, let's talk about that victory that has come against Namibia. 4 players really stood out with their performances for India. The 2 openers in KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma notching up their half centuries, and then the 2 spinners in Ravindra Jadeja and Ravi Ashwin. Between them, they picked up 6 wickets. Here are the highlights. Joining us on the program live is Sunil Gavaskar. Sunil, would it be fair to say, now that I'm looking back at all of India's performance at the T20 World Cup, that India's success in T20 internationals is directly proportional to how successful their 2 openers are? Because more often than not, whenever the openers fire, they end up on the winning side.
Well, it's a case of winning the first power play. Whether you're batting or bowling in those 6 overs of batting or bowling, you win that for your team. Then you're pretty much making sure that as the next overs go on, you're going to win it for the match for them. So in the first 6 overs of batting, if you get to maybe 50 runs, about 8.5, or maybe even more runs, maybe losing just a wicket, you're giving your team just the platform that you need, which what the openers did in the last 3 games. And then with the bowling as well, in the first 6 overs, you take 2 or 3 wickets, you push the opposition back. And that is what the Indian team did against the 3 teams. Admittedly, lightweight teams, but they did that and therefore won handsomely.
All right, it was a very important game for India, and not just because they rounded up this campaign with a victory, because they have another series coming with New Zealand, but also remember, this was the last game for Virat Kohli as a T20I international captain for India. Who's going to take over from Virat Kohli? It was the captain himself who dropped a hint during the encounter. Listen to this. All right, Sunil, I'm just quoting what Virat has just said, that Rohit has been looking on anyway and Indian cricket is in good hands. If I was to ask your opinion, you reckon Rohit Sharma is the best choice going forward, or are you going to look at long term and probably invest in a youngster as a skipper of the T20I internationals?
Well, long term is in case the next World Cup was maybe 2 years away or 3 years away. The next World Cup is less than 12 months away. So you don't really have to look long-term then. Maybe long-term you can look 2022. But right now, I think you've got to look for the best man who can take India to a ICC trophy, and that is Rohit Sharma. With his record for Mumbai Indians in the IPL, he is the obvious choice. So I think he should be given the captaincy. And maybe next year, after the next year's World Cup in Australia is done, maybe have a look at another T20 captain. But right now, it's only Rohit Sharma.
All right, just talking about the captaincy now, how do you see Virat Kohli's role now as just a batsman in T20 internationals for India going forward? Do you see him being as destructive as we saw him a few years ago? How do you see his role now in the team?
Well, in the last couple of years, his scoring rate had dropped down. So, and maybe it could have been the cares of captaincy that did that. So clearly, I think with the cares of captaincy no longer on his shoulders, he would be able to regain that destructive streak that he had 4 years ago. And if that happens, then it's only a win-win situation for Indian cricket.
All right, finally, if I was to ask you, how would you sum up his captaincy? I'm just going to, mention a few numbers here. 50-odd matches that he's captain, which is, one of the highest for any Indian, only after MS Dhoni. He's got 32 wins there, a 64% win percentage that I see. How would you sum up his tenure as a T20I international captain?
Well, you just mentioned all the records, and I think that just shows what a terrific captain he's been. He's got the results in bilateral series, whether it's been at home or overseas. Overseas, India has beaten South Africa, Australia, England, West Indies, in the T20 format, in the 50 overs format. So I think his record is unmatchable. Yes, in the ICC events, the team has faltered. But even in the ICC event, the World Cup, the 50 overs World Cup, India were in the semi-finals. So they were in the top 4 teams. So clearly, I think if you forget the ICC trophies, then his record's outstanding.
So if I was to nitpick, and I'm just looking back now in hindsight as far as Virat as captain was concerned, when he also looks back, would he see that one minor thing, no consistency in playing 11s, would be one thing that if you give him a chance now, he would like to rectify, looking back at his tenure as captain?
That's hard to say. That is really, really hard to say. But I think the captain generally picks the side according to what he thinks is going to be best suited for that particular day, for that particular opposition, for that particular ground conditions. So, I mean, down the road now, I don't think it's worth even looking back and saying, look, he should have done this or he should have done that. Let's just be thankful for the fact that he was there. He took India to so many wins at home and overseas. And let's celebrate the fact that as a captain, he got many, many, many victories for India.
All right. As Sai says, we're going to forget about now looking back. We look forward now in our program. What is it that India needs to do going forward in the next 1 year? That's going to be our focus for the next few minutes. But before that, let's listen in to Ravi Shastri as well. Remember, his tenure as coach is also coming to an end. And this is what he had to say about India's performance at this T20 World Cup. Right, Saiba, as often as it happens in India, when the Indian team doesn't do well, all hell breaks loose. But I'm going to ask you, to give us some sort of perspective. Now, going forward, as you were saying, plenty of things to look forward to. There's an immediate series now against New Zealand. And then going forward, there'll be some important tours. Then the T20 World Cup. Just looking at the T20 team, do you think this T20 team should remain? This is the core group and you should continue with this? Or do you need a major overhaul as far as T20 cricket is concerned?
I think there has to be some sort of a change, but not immediately. But you certainly need fresh legs, fresh thinking, more T20 approach, more T20-like approach and attitude from some of the new guys coming in. So that will happen. That will happen over the year. There's no doubt about it. Right now, I don't think we should be looking to make too many changes. We mustn't be looking to shuffle too many people up and down. Just be happy with what has happened so far. I mean, obviously, don't take the fact that the World Cup has been lost lightly. Think about what happened. But clearly, I think too many changes don't help anybody.
Right. Saima, just looking back, is there any player that you can think that should have been part of this T20 team, the Indian T20 team at this World Cup and wasn't here?
I can't think of anybody. You could quibble about the fact that you wanted a Chahal in place of Chahar, but then Chahar only got to play the last game over here. So it's very difficult to say that, he would have made a difference or not. The fact is, it was not the bowling that made the difference. It was really the batting that didn't click in the first two games and didn't put enough runs on the board, and which is the reason why India is out of this year's World Cup.
Sunil Gavaskar is back with us. Anyway, I'll let you continue. You were telling us what is it that those few aspects that India need to work on. We lost your connection at the time, so if you could then throw some light on that.
Well, I was thinking that, the batting, the first 6 overs of batting power play, India need to really shed their inhibitions, go for broke, as they say, because they've got depth in their batting. If you've got a Jadeja at 7 and Ashwin, if he's in the 11 at 8, you've got depth in your batting. So those first 2 or 3 batsmen in the first 6 overs, you must look to get a strike rate of at least 8 to 9 runs an over. Because then in the next 14 overs, if you even have a 9 runs an over average, you will get to about 160, 170. And that's a very, very good score to defend. So that is where India need to change their approach, which we saw in the next 3 games. But again, let's not get carried away with that for the simple reason the attacks were not as good as the Pakistan and New Zealand attack. I know it's not easy to do that, but the attempt must be there to try and take advantage of just those 2 fielders outside the circle in the power play. Then India really need to look at the fielding. The fielding aspect is one where they need to save runs in the field. You look at the New Zealand fielding team, look at the added edge the fielding gives to bowling, which may not be very penetrant. So that is what India need to do. India have, in this particular tournament, India had at least 3 or 4 fielders against whom, if the ball went to them, most opposition batsmen would, if they're in the deep, would be looking at 2. and if it was in the 30-yard circle, would be looking to steal a single quite comfortably. So that those little things is what I think India really need to look at.
Right.
And if they get that together, then they can go on to do much better than what they did here in this 2020.
Right. Sai, final comments from you before we wrap up the show. The Indian team for the New Zealand series is going to be announced. What would you like the selectors to look at? Would you like a few experiments? Because we know that it'll be a T20 year, next T20 World Cup year next year. And probably before that, you want to get all your experiments done much before that. So you have a consistent team when you go into that tournament. Would this be an opportunity to try a few players? Would you like a new players to be given a chance? If yes, who are the players that you have on your radar?
See, it's a wonderful opportunity, really a wonderful opportunity. I think India, by my calculation, is going to play at least 20 T20 games before they go for the World Cup, maybe more than that. So that's a great opportunity to give some players who you think can be there in Australia. Right now, I think every little thing that you do as a selection committee must be with a thought to Australia. What kind of pitches you'll get in Australia, the size of the boundaries in Australia, all those things must be taken into account when you're picking the T20 teams. And by that token, just have a look at what the performers have been in the IPL. Those who have performed outstandingly over there, they must be given an opportunity. If they have not played for India, they must be given an opportunity to play for India and see how it goes. I'm not going to name names, that's the selection committee's job. But what I would like to see is that there are some players here who have not done well. Maybe there are some players here who need a little bit of a break before they play the test matches. So bring in some of the fresher faces who you think will be required and will do well in Australia and give them a break.
All right, Sunny bhai, we'll leave it at that. As Sunny bhai is there talking about some really fine points and some great insights there, how the Indian team can really plan going forward, because remember, there will be another T20 World Cup in 12 months' time. And if you really want to do well there, your preparations need to start right now. Looking ahead to Australia, as he says, look at a few players that might just be very crucial when you're going to play in those particular conditions. Maybe a few youngsters who've done very well in the IPL. Things for the selectors to ponder over. I'm afraid that's all the time that we have on the show at the moment. You're watching Battle of Champions.